The terms Latinx and people of color are cringy and rarely used by the groups they encompass. For those who do not know of the term Latinx, it is supposed to be the gender-neutral term to Latino and Latina. The word was coined online by intersectional groups. No one in Latin America uses this term, and very few Latino Americans use this term IRL. Personally, the only time I've seen it used IRL is by guilty whites. It's regularly used in BuzzFeed and Now This videos. I do not know of the origins of people of color, but I imagine its origin is somewhere similar. People of color is basically another way of saying colored people, and I rarely see blacks, Asians, or Latinos use it, even online. We already have a gender-neutral term for Latinos, Latin. The Latin community. Latin dance. Latin food. Why did we need a new word? I see the term Latinx used pretty much in every trendy American media outlet, but not one Latino person I have ever met has referred to either themselves nor their community in this way. The whole thing that Americans have with not calling themselves American but Irish American or German American is cringy as fuck. It's more of a college thing. Every Hispanic person that I've encountered at school usually has an opinion about it one way or another. I actually see people of color used a lot. My Asian and black friends use the term often to separate that particular group of people from the majority. Don't see anything wrong with it. Deleted. Made by white people who think they know how those minorities feel. Inadvertently being supremacist by dictating to others how they should feel about things. I'm not fluent en Español, I'm trying though, but isn't O used as the gender neutral? Why the fuck does it need to be changed? How do you even pronounce Latinx? Latinx. Latinx. The first time I heard Latinx, I thought it was a Mexican sphinx. Actually, as a Latinx myself, haha, I can say those X things are used but only by journalists and really politicized left-wing youngsters. It wouldn't be very used nonetheless because our whole language is based on genders and it's very hard to think without them. It is even hard to write in English without pissing people off sometimes because in my head I always have to assume genders, that's just how I think. Also, how are you gonna say Latinx? In English it might make sense, but it sounds ridiculous in Portuguese, haha. There's a lot of people trying to make fetch happen, https://www. YouTube.com/watch. V equals pubbed SPHN 0, it's not going to happen. I have been using POC and whatnot for a good while and so has like everyone on my friends list and the groups I'm in. Man shrugging. I saw a poll where 98% of Hispanics thought the word Latinx was weird and refused to use it. 99% of Hispanic men, 97% of Hispanic women. Latinx seems to be almost a solely Anglophone phrase. It doesn't make any sense to any Spanish speaker who doesn't already know the purpose of putting X into a word in English. St. Patrick's Day rolls around, I'm Irish American. But also, later that day, Latinx and Latino American. But why? Aren't we all American? Why do they have to label themselves differently? I agree that Latinx is dumb, but people of color just serves as a catch-all term for non-white people. It's slightly more specific than minority and demographics can change based on location. Very few people would call themselves a person of color because 90% of the time they can label themselves as something more specific. Do they have a politically correct version of Chicano/Chicana? Well, the majority of people in my Chicano studies class just use the term Latino. Most of my classes including myself didn't even knew what Latinx or Chicanx was until our teacher told us. I hate that shit. Your 100 points. Yeah, Latinx is so unnecessary. I understand saying people of color if you aren't talking about one race specifically, like a general term. What else would you say? I see people use POC all the time on Twitter, but then again it's pretty much SJW central. The only ones offended are young, white women. I use people of color to refer to my dogs all the time. They prefer to be called Melaninx too. I live in a majority Hispanic city. Huge Mexican influence. Nobody says Latinx. Spanish is a gendered language and Mexican American culture is very much a cut your bullshit mentality. They'll welcome you into their homes like family, give you way too much food, tell you all of their stories. But they don't do whining. As a Latina, I also find this Latinx BS cringe. How the heck is it even pronounced? LOL. Every skin tone is a color, so maybe we should just shorten the redundant people of color down to people. I'm Hispanic and have literally never heard the word Latinx. Every time I see Latinx I hear Latinx and it just makes me picture fairies with little French hats and baguettes. And yeah, the whole people of color thing is stupid AF. As a sanitized version of colored people, which they don't seem to mind the NAACP using, it just makes me think of silly shit like chucker of spears or monkey of porches. It's overly pretentious while still being the same old racist bullshit. Latinx is dumb. POC depends on the context of use. I'm Hispanic and definitely Latinx makes me cringe. I actually been living in the US for a couple months and travel a lot to my home country and it just feels like a silly AF trend, because they try to do the same shit in Spanish to create inclusive language. I had no idea what the fuck Latinx was supposed to be the first time I saw it. Latinx is so awkward and I can't help but hear Latinx in my head. Do people use the term Hispanic anymore? That seems more gender neutral and less insane to me. I've never even heard of Latinx. I hate POC so much. I'm a Mexican American. Call me Mexican, I don't care. All the PC people who think Mexican has negative connotations should really take a good look in the mirror. At the end of the day just call me my name, why does it matter where my ancestors are from? I agree that Latinx isn't a term I use for myself since Latino in Spanish can be used to mean both a Latino man but also Latinos in general. I do however use the phrase people of color and find nothing wrong with it. Point of order, how am I supposed to pronounce it? Latinx. Or the way Spanish speakers pronounce an X, like in Mexico, or Oaxaca. I thought I was the only one cringing when I hear the Radio de Latinx. I'm Cuban and Puerto Rican. We say I'm Cuban or I'm Puerto Rican. A lot of the times I just say that I'm Hispanic. As a Latina, what I find funny is that the word Latinx can't even be pronounced in Spanish or Portuguese.